Hello, welcome to Human Existence from First Principles. This is episode 2 and it's entitled Consciousness is Primary. Or we could say, maybe it's a bit clearer to say, conscious experience is primary. Okay, episode 2. So let's just recap the conclusions we came to in episode 1. So episode 1, we came to certain conclusions. We need to bear in mind all the important conclusions that we come to as we progress through the series, because we're building a model, and the model is made by stacking important conclusions together in order to construct a model of reality that works and that accurately fits or aligns with our experience of reality. Okay, so we're all experiencing reality all the time. We can't help but experience reality. You're experiencing reality at the moment. And in your mind, you have a model of reality, how reality works. Some people's models are much more detailed than others. If you're a physicist, you'll have a more detailed model than, a chef, because a physicist spends a whole lot of time learning how to mathematically model reality. Okay, so we need to bear in mind all the important conclusions we come to. So we came to in episode 1, we came to the conclusions, nothingness is not the case. So when we're talking about existence, it's definitely not nothingness. You hearing my words right now is definitely not nothingness. So we know that nothingness is not the case. Now, on that, with that stated, then we can move on and try and describe what is the case. Okay, and in episode 1, we came to the conclusions that I am a singular, or maybe not, we shouldn't say conclusion, but we said that we're going to accept as a postulate the proposition that I am a singular individual conscious human, and that you, whoever you are also a singular conscious human as well. So you're having your singular human conscious experience, which is private within your mind, and I'm having my singular human conscious experience, which is private to my mind. So if I'm sitting next to you on the bus, I can't tell what you're thinking about, and you can't tell what I'm thinking about. So we're not all one, we're not all having the same conscious experience. We're individual conscious entities. And now we move on to the subject of this episode, which is consciousness is primary, or conscious experience is primary to everything. So the most fundamental phenomenon of existence is conscious experience. Okay, this is very, very easy to prove, and you can prove it in just millions of ways, but all those proofs basically boil down to being descriptions of human experience. So since we're all humans, conscious humans, the only experience any of us have ever had is human experience. You don't know exactly what it's like to be an elephant, for example. You can have some idea because an elephant has 2 eyes and can see things, and you know what it's like to see things, and has a stomach and gets hungry, and you know what it's like to feel hungry. But you don't know. Ultimately, being an elephant is definitely very different from being a human, and you don't know exactly what it's like to be an elephant, whereas you do know exactly what it's like to be a human. So we are everything we say about the universe is always based on human experience, because that's the only experience we ever have. Unless you want to claim that you are not a human or something else or something bigger and better than a human, but this podcast is by a human for humans. So the only experience we ever have is human experience. And so all of our perspectives on the universe are always human perspectives. Okay, so from a human perspective, we now want to show that consciousness is the primary phenomenon of existence. So, if you're a materialistic scientist, a Newtonian scientist, or let's think about Isaac Newton himself. If you looked at his physics, let's not talk about him, but if someone who just looked at his physics and understood the universe by way of his physics, you might conclude that what's primary is energy and matter and the laws of motion and the law of gravity. You might consider all those things primary. And since Newton, most scientists have considered those things as the most fundamental phenomena of our universe. But if we look a bit more closely, we realize that to deduce those laws, to come up with that knowledge, Isaac Newton had to be conscious. And his deductions of the laws of the universe were all conscious deductions made through and by his consciousness. And him coming to those conclusions were all conscious experiences. And not only that, but before Newton came up with all his laws, all his physics, what he did first was spend inordinate amounts of time observing the universe and how it moved and how it functioned, and doing experiments and things. And all of those observations he made were conscious observations. And all the experiments he did whilst conscious, and he took meaning from them. Taking meaning from those experiments is also a conscious experience. So, and we can understand that if he hadn't been conscious, he wouldn't have been able to do any of those things. He needed to be conscious to consciously imagine and deduce all the laws of the universe. And if we weren't conscious, if humans weren't conscious, we would have no idea whatsoever about the universe. We wouldn't be able to say anything about it. It could still exist. It could still have properties. Knowledge about that universe could be possible, but not for humans, because they aren't. If not for humans, if they weren't conscious. All understanding, all experience is conscious experience. Anytime you have the sensation of knowing something, I don't know, someone might tell you that the earth is flat, and your reaction to that consciously within yourself will be a rejection of that fact. No, it's not. The earth is round, spherical. And that sensation of knowledge is a conscious experience as well. And if you look personally at your own life, if you have studied physics, it required a lot of conscious effort, conscious concentration, conscious focus. And your understanding was by way of conscious experience. At first, you didn't understand Newton's laws and calculus and things like that, but you kept on exposing yourself to them consciously by reading textbooks, listening to teachers, watching videos, etc. They became more and more familiar. These experiences all affected the physical nature of your brain until you became more and more familiar with these things, until you consciously understood them. Which I think already is enough for us to conclude that all our knowledge, all our understanding of the universe is by way of conscious experience. And repeated conscious experiences and long strings of connected conscious experiences, such as education. But everything that we do know about our universe, we know by way of consciousness. And if you're unconscious, you can't understand anything. If you've been rendered unconscious for surgery or something like that, you won't learn any physics during that time. You won't come to any understanding about the universe. And the only way that you know the universe exists is because you are having conscious experience of yourself within that universe, and you're connected to the universe surrounding you. Okay. So I think that's more or less enough. Conscious. So yeah, I mean, humans could exist. You could imagine a universe where there were humans like us, but they're totally devoid of any conscious experience. Well, they couldn't have any knowledge of the universe. They wouldn't know if they weren't conscious, they wouldn't know the universe existed in the first place. They could only be a pre-programmed, automatons, robots, or what have you. But if they weren't conscious, they would have no idea of the universe existing, and wouldn't be able to ask the question, what is the universe? How does it work? So, one way to prove this for yourself is, reflect on your own education. Have you ever learned anything whilst unconscious? You know what it feels like consciously to learn something. You know what it feels like to make that extra effort within your mind to concentrate and focus and model something in your mind, and exercises like that take you from total ignorance to complete understanding of something, like, for example, learning how to understand and apply Newton's laws using calculus, mathematics. At first, I started studying that when I was 16, I think, in secondary school, in applied mathematics class and in physics class. And at first, you just didn't understand it at all, and you kept exposing yourself to it, having conscious experience of the ideas, focusing on them, trying to construct models with your brain, which requires conscious effort. And eventually you gain more and more understanding of what you're focusing on. Okay, that's it really. Consciousness is primary to all our understanding of the universe. Consciousness is primary to all our knowledge and understanding of the universe. Okay, and now one objection or point I can imagine people making at the moment is, but what is consciousness? You haven't defined consciousness. And that's a good point. And we will define consciousness, and we'll define consciousness very precisely and scientifically in an episode, in one of the forthcoming episodes very soon. Episode 3, 4, or 5, or 6 will be the scientific definition of consciousness. Actually, there's a lecture, a video on this same channel entitled The Scientific Definition of Consciousness. If you'd like to, you can check that out immediately if you want. But people might say now, but what is consciousness? You haven't defined consciousness. So my response is, well, we will shortly, and actually the definition is already up on this channel, but not as a part of this series yet, as part of a different series. And then another thing that I want from this series of lectures is that they're very personal. I want you to confirm everything I say. Like when I say nothingness is not the case, that I want you to really put that in your mind and see how you feel. Ultimately, truth is a sensation. It's when you put an idea in your head and you examine it consciously, and it either gives you a sensation of yes, true, or no, false, or somewhere in between, which would be I'm not sure. There's a spectrum of feeling of sureness. If I say 2 + 2 = 4, you have a sensation of truth because of all your experience of the universe and your education that have led you to have the conscious reaction to that proposition of yes, that's definitely true. And if I say 2 + 2 = 5, you have a conscious sensation of no, that's false. Or if I say the earth is flat, you have a conscious sensation of that being false for all manner of reasons. But so I want you to really personally engage with these discussions and check everything consciously for yourself. Check that nothingness is definitely not the case. You're definitely not nothing. Do you check if you're an individual conscious human having your own separate conscious experience? Do you believe that? I think that you do. I think you might, for philosophical reasons or for social reasons, sometimes doubt it or pretend to doubt it, but I don't think that you really do doubt it. Personally, maybe I'm wrong. I think that you do actually, deep down, believe that you're a singular, individual, conscious human. But, I might be wrong. Maybe you don't believe that. Most people, I think, do believe that. So, what was my point? I want you to listen, personal check everything. I always forget my point. So yeah, at the end of this episode, at the end of this episode, we can run through a little checklist and see if you're still with me. Do you agree that nothingness is not the case? If nothing, your conscious experience breaks through nothingness and destroys total nothingness? Do you agree that you're a singular, conscious human individual? I imagine you probably do. Even if you do doubt that you're a singular, conscious human individual, then I've got a question for you, which is, why are you living every single day of your life as if you are? And why are you making such an effort at your life as a human, singular individual, conscious individual, if you don't believe that you actually are one? Because that's very confused. And all the meaning that you're deriving from your life is predicated on the idea that you're a single human, single individual, conscious human who, deserves credit for their achievements and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's leave it there. Nothingness is not the case. We're individual conscious humans, and consciousness is primary to our knowledge and understanding of our universe that surrounds us. Right, so in the next, conscious experience is primary, and in the next episode 3, we're going to talk about, or the title will be Reality is Scientific. So, you're having your conscious experience of reality, I'm having my conscious experience of reality. And we're going to talk about the fact that our conscious experience of reality is consistently and universally scientific. So we're going to talk about what that means. So that will be episode 3. Reality is scientific. Okay. Thanks for listening. All the best. Adios.